And we're back. Welcome to the Promise Startups Conference right here live at Nevada Partners here in North Las Vegas, home to a lot of incredible projects. One of them being the Tourism Business Igniter. Also, with UNLV, right? We've also got, we're going to get some cool plaques on the wall that say home of Nevada Partners. Probably even throwing some Warrior Rising and some Bunker Labs in there too. Because you're looking at the future of the Veteran Entrepreneur Library. And this is very appropriate because we're kicking off Freedom Week right here in Las Vegas with a week long of events that have to do with veteran entrepreneurship. So what better way to close out today's conference than to have a panel discussion with some incredible veteran entrepreneurs. So I am joined. Thank you. There is no teleprompter for that. I just want to make note that if you're looking for somebody to host your events, I know a guy. So we're gonna start first with just introductions. Introductions would be great to say who you are, what you're excited about, what you're working on, and your service. The service as far as your branch of service and your military experience. So my name is Dave Berlin. I am a Marine Corps veteran, and I'm absolutely passionate about connecting people here in Las Vegas so together we can show the world who we really are. I do that by a couple of different things. I'm the state coordinator for Global Entrepreneurship Week. I'm the program manager for a national program called Vets in Tech. And then I do some other great stuff as well that's really not relevant to today's panel. So I'll pass the mic over for introduction.
I'm Nakia DeVita, and I'm the CEO and founder of Mind Sonics, where neuroscience meets the healing power of music. So I'm a singer-songwriter, but I've innovated to start a tech company to up-level a 20-year process to reprogram subconscious beliefs in the time it takes to listen to a song so you can achieve your goals faster and easier. I'm an Air Force veteran, Air Force Academy grad, and I also have a nonprofit called Sisters Who Serve for women veterans going from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth.
I've got one over here. Hi, I'm Jason LeDuc. I'm a 20-year Air Force veteran, retired in 2015, and I am excited about and passionate about raising the bar on all of our leadership and strategy abilities and skills so that we can achieve those big, lofty goals that we all want to achieve in our Las Vegas community and beyond.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Monifa Keynes, and I am an ambassador for Bunker Labs. I also am part of the Southern Nevada Veteran Chamber of Commerce, and I own my own business. I am the CEO and founder of Queen of Spades, where I handcraft clothes and jewelry and other accessories. And I'm excited about merging technology with new devices that people normally don't think about.
I love it. All right. So to kick off this panel, we're going to talk about a couple things when it comes to veteran entrepreneurship as a whole, but also more specifically here in the Las Vegas Valley. So my first question, I'm going to start all the way down at the end with Monifa. Monifa, what do you see as the biggest challenge that veterans face in their transition or expansion from service to civilian life?
Thank you, Dave. I think the biggest challenge is that veterans need to find their community. When we're in the military, we have a built-in community, and you're coming out and you still need to have that ethic of looking for the people that want to see you win and surround yourself with that. So you have to interject yourself into the community, different groups and clubs, so that you can find that community to help you transition into a new life, new way of doing things, helping you along on this new journey so it's not as rough and you won't walk alone.
I love that. Jason, what do you think, my friend?
I think that community part is really important as well. That's something, if you're a veteran who's, whether you're thinking about entrepreneurship or not, think about what your community is going to be when you take that uniform off. But for veteran entrepreneurship, one of the things that I found in my journey was I had to start getting really comfortable with uncertainty, because we deal with uncertainty when we're in the military But the way we deal with uncertainty in the military is to go gather a bunch of information and intel, reduce the uncertainty, make a plan to reduce the uncertainty, take all the steps to reduce the uncertainty, and whittle everything down to the fewest variables possible. And entrepreneurship just isn't like that. You need to be really comfortable with the uncertainty of not knowing the next time you're going to get paid. You have to be really uncomfortable not knowing. You have to be really comfortable with not knowing who your next client is going to be. You have to be really comfortable not knowing what the next steps in your plan are going to be and being capable of changing and adapting in those steps. And that's a different kind of improvise, adapt, overcome than we learn in the military.
Those are two really good ones. I think to kind of add to that, I would say resourcefulness and resilience. And so similar to community would be part of the benefit of that community is to gather the resources that you need. Like, where are the gaps in whether you are wanting to get from point A to point B? So what is your goal? And then how do you find the resources available to help you achieve that? So that's part of the benefit of community. So the resourcefulness in looking for what's available to help and support you versus in the military, so many of us, depending on what our particular career field was in the military, it was, asking for help could be seen as a weakness versus in resourcefulness, you're really seeking that support. And then resilience, of course, we've all gone through stuff in the military, and probably before the military. Usually people get into the military for two reasons. Some noble calling, maybe from passed down generations of family, or to escape something. And many times it's the latter. At least it was for me. And so the resilience factor is, what other support, resources, community do you have to help you navigate some of those challenges that you may have experienced, some of those traumas or stressful situations and so forth that may have left a lasting mark that you wish it didn't. But we have different expressions and symptoms. And so I think the resilience factor in learning how to overcome and navigate some of those challenges so that you're really whole and complete to be able to move forward, maybe with a more purpose-driven life, which I think would be the last one, is really finding a sense of purpose and a new mission, a new calling, where I think that was the biggest thing for me is, in the military, there's a mission bigger than ourselves. And then when you get turn into a civilian, you turn into one just like one day, then it's like, okay, well, now what? And so finding that place within yourself, I think it's a lot of reflection and introspection to then, what is my new purpose? How do I want to, co-create my life going forward?
I love that. All very, very powerful. Thank you guys all for sharing that. We'll keep going down from one end to the back over. What would you say is the most powerful attribute that people have coming out of the service that can help them in their expansion, whether it be education, employment, entrepreneurship, whichever path they take? What is that attribute that you think is the most powerful, and what was the most powerful for you?
The most powerful attribute, I would say, is perseverance. Whether it's from the military and you're coming out, entrepreneurship, going back to school, finding what job is right for you, learning a trade. It's not as easy all the time in the transition, but you have a goal in mind and you're not going to give up. You're going to keep going. You're going to find out what works and you're going to make it happen. And that's one thing we do have in the military, is that perseverance. You have an A, B, C, D, and all else fails plan, but we're going to make it happen. For me, I would have to say the biggest attribute was that just like Nikhil was saying, there was a bigger mission in the military. Now it's what the mission was for me. And it was getting to those goals to accomplish something of where I see myself. I'm now independent. I'm not a part of that unit to make something bigger happen. It's about me. And so that bigger attribute was to look on the inside and think about what do I want now? Where do I see myself and how I'm going to make it happen? So some of that was perseverance, but some of that was actually knowing that I needed to get to know myself. And that also was taking time out for me.
I think for me, the biggest thing was the ability to see an outcome that I want to achieve, or to be given an outcome. That's the skill in the military, to be given an outcome that needs to be achieved, and then to be able to figure out these are the steps that need to happen in order for us to achieve that outcome. And that's going to require pulling a team of people together, gathering some resources, making a plan, all of those kinds of things. It's the ability to take the initiative to figure out what needs to go get done in order to achieve an outcome, as opposed to having to be told or given step-by-step instructions. And that's something I think serve our veteran entrepreneurs really well, is they see their vision, but then they also can turn that strategy into action, go from the strategic to the tactical, and bring along those people who we need to make that happen, and figure out all of those steps, reassess, add in new steps, take steps away, and then move on to the next outcome.
Totally agree. And I call that like reverse engineering, your success. I think out of the military, we're almost all qualified as project managers, So I think to some degree, that's a real key attribute and skill set that we all have. And I think similar to what you said, Monifa, the first thing when you asked the question that popped into my mind was grit, which is perseverance, but it's like, it's grittier than perseverance. It's grit, So it's like you have to dig deep sometimes, especially as an entrepreneur, not sometimes, virtually every day, or maybe multiple times a day, depending what's going on any given week or day. So I think really the grit to stick to it, even when it's hard. I think anyone in the military has experienced that over and over. And so we're conditioned to be able to, in a way, compartmentalize and just keep pressing on.
That's very powerful. So next, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a veteran that's either still serving today or has already, left the military, who might be interested about entrepreneurship? What's the biggest piece of advice you'd have for that person?
I would say the biggest piece of advice, whether you're still active duty, guard, reservist, you're a veteran, is to first figure out what you want to do when you wake up every day in the morning. You're going to have some good days and you're going to have some bad days, but what will keep you going? And part of that is you have to know yourself. What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in a few years? And what do you want to learn? And so after knowing that, then it's about finding that community to help you bridge that gap. Because I always say you don't get anywhere by yourself. You get somewhere with that community around you.
I think it's very important, whether you are thinking about entrepreneurship or whatever it is you're thinking about doing when you're getting ready to leave the service and take the uniform off. It's important to think about what's the impact you want to make in the world. What's the good you want to go do in the world, whether that's working for someone else, whether that's being an entrepreneur, whether that's being involved in a nonprofit, whatever it is understanding what that impact you want to make is. And if you're still in, think about how you can prepare yourself. What steps can you take to prepare yourself before you take that uniform off? Because we all know, actually all four of us know, sitting here, your life becomes very different the day that uniform comes off. And I'm going to talk about it here. We've all talked about it. We were all told it doesn't matter. I don't think anything really prepares you for how different your life becomes the day. And that's going to be a distraction. It's going to be adjustments that you're going to have a hard time staying focused on that good you want to do in the world. So just prepare yourself for that. Take steps early. And then don't forget what that good you want to do in the world is. Keep coming back to that. It's a touchstone. so that when you do have hard days as an entrepreneur, you can remind yourself, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I don't quit this and just go get a job somewhere.
All really good stuff. The piece of advice, if you're really considering wanting to start a business and be an entrepreneur, I think for me, the biggest thing that was impactful for me is that think of whatever that business is that you're doing. You're not in the business of that thing. So if you're a web developer, you're not in the business of being a web developer. You're in the marketing business of web development. So you're in the sales and marketing business of your business. And I think if you can't really embrace that, you really see yourself as a sales professional and really embrace sales and marketing and that aspect, which is what drives the revenue of a business to allow it to be sustainable, and the networking activities and so forth that go along with that, and building the network in the community, etc. If that does not like light you up, that you can see 65% of your day doing those activities to sustain the business, then you may not be suited for a business. So I think for me, the good, the bad, the ugly in a business is that you are in the sales and marketing business of whatever the thing is that you do. And I think that's really the biggest thing. It's not, some people get into business for different reasons. I want to be my own boss. I want to make my own hours. It's like, oh yeah. anyone here who has a business, it's like, yeah, 18 hours a day. How's that sound? Weekends, holidays. How's that? The day off is really the day to catch up on all your stuff. It's not, to have a vacation. It's like, oh shoot, I have all this project I didn't get to. So if you want to have a life, get a job. If you want to make a difference and leave a lasting legacy that may or may not work out, if you want to, you talk about uncertainty and risk. If you have a high degree of tolerance for a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty, then entrepreneurship is for you. Otherwise, get a job.
It reminds me of a saying we used to have in the Air Force. A colonel I used to work for used to say this: I only expect you to work from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
What, only from 9 to 5. What you do with the other 4 hours is your business.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Work half days.
Yeah. That's great.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
On that note, shout out to everybody that showed up on a Saturday, veteran or not. You guys are making it happen. We're also going to need you to come in. I want to talk a little bit about something I shared earlier, and that's about the power of relationships. How important are relationships in your expansion out of the military into service to civilian life? And is there a specific example of a relationship that mattered to you, that helped you in your journey?
Relationships are everything. They're huge. And all my relationships that I've met with people are very personal. When I was starting my business, I was walking alone on my journey. And then someone told me about an organization called Veterans Growing America, which is in Virginia. And there I seen all these veteran entrepreneurs working together, being a team. They wanted to see everybody win, teaching me things, letting me know, come over here. Let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to structure your business. You got to watch out for this. And it was almost like I was back in the military again, as in with the camaraderie. So when I met all these veteran entrepreneurs that wanted to help me on my journey, they introduced me to so many wonderful things, so many organizations, so many programs where I can learn more about businesses. And then my trajectory for my business just went up. It's because I had a group of people around me that wanted me to get to where they were. And so the relationship of me walking into a group of veteran entrepreneurs that said, hey, come on, we're going to take you with us, was everything. And from there, I met other people. I moved. Somebody told me about Bunker Labs in Las Vegas. I met Dave. I met a whole bunch of people. So one relationship keeps linking you to others for greatness.
I don't think anyone's going to deny that relationships are everything in business. I think we're all going to stipulate to that. What I have found is that the relationships that were most meaningful and the most impactful, both personally and professionally for me, were the ones that I never expected I would be a part of. So getting involved, like if you told me while I was in the Air Force that I was going to be an entrepreneur, I was going to be involved in the Las Vegas tech startup community, and I was going to be involved in veterans efforts and veterans charities and all these other things, I would have told you were crazy. I would have told you you're absolutely crazy. But all of those things that were not on my direct path of starting my business and trying to serve the kinds of clients I wanted to serve, all of those things have been both the most meaningful and most impactful in terms of personal fulfillment and professional development and growth of my company. So that's my advice, is go look for relationships and get involved in organizations that you might not normally go get involved in, or you might not normally have seen yourself as part of. And when those opportunities come along, because they will, someone will come ask you for help. Just say yes to that. Especially if it's not the main thing you're interested in or the main thing you're involved in, someone will come to you and ask you to participate. Well, there'll be an opportunity for you to participate. Just do it and get a broader perspective and build relationships outside of the mainstream of what you would expect would be on your path.
Well said. Let's see. Yeah, no denying relationships. And I think I'll take a slightly different angle about, I think the biggest thing that really helped me in the relationship is finding mentors who been there, done that, and who could create like a shortcut for me because they knew the way, and then they could step by step give me the roadmap to follow so that I could achieve what I wanted to faster and easier. So finding the right mentors and having a really good screening criteria for that, by the way, and making sure that they really fit your criteria, and then they actually are people who aren't just teaching the thing, but they're actually actively engaged in still doing the thing, not just they did it 20 years ago and now they teach it. So mentors for sure. And then I think similar tangent, like there's the mentor building relationships, but I found volunteering was really getting me out of myself, getting me out of my own skin, stopping the isolation, I think was a really big deal. And that's part of the relationships in the community, Monifa, that you were talking about. But, when all else fails, you can give, and when we give to another cause or mission greater than ourselves, we don't see our own maybe problems or our own world as insurmountable as we may have thought. And then when we leave and go, give and go support others, it's like, okay, it got me out of my own space, my own funk maybe. But then I realized, we're all in this together. I'm not the only one who's dealing with this. There are other people. And I think that isolation, overcoming that isolation as veterans is a big deal. And then seeking that help, whether just through relationships or mentors. Would be mine.
All right. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of this. It's very insightful. As we wrap this portion of the panel, another thing that's been very powerful in my life, next to relationships, are books, as we sit in front of the incredible Veteran Entrepreneur Library. What is one book that has been the most impactful for you in your journey into entrepreneurship?
Just one?
Just one.
I'll let you start.
Oh.
I have my answer already. Dave already knows what it is, I'm sure. So a couple of years ago, if you're familiar with Rick Rubin, music producer, Beastie Boys, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rick Rubin wrote a book, I think it was about 2 years ago now. It's called The Creative Act. And it's a lot of little vignettes that just talks about how he goes about doing what he does to work with artists to create some of the most amazing rock and hip hop and R&B music of the last 4 decades. Super short chapters, really easy to read. Feels like you're having a conversation with Rick Rubin. I kind of knew who Rick Rubin was before. Absolutely obsessed with him after reading this book. I have always, my background is science and engineering. I've always kind of known I'm creative, but never felt like I was artist kind of creative. And Rick Rubin's book, I found, gives you a lot of that permission to just experiment with things, to just do it because it seems like it's good to you, to not worry about what other people think about it. And I've been fascinated with the creative process for years. And so if you are, we all go through dry spells in our creative thoughts sometimes. This is a book that really was a breakthrough for me of being able to just go try it. Don't worry about the outcome.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So this book that I'm going to name, I read it maybe close to 20 years ago, and I read it once a year. Very quick book, effective book. At first, I used it in my personal life, and now I use it in business. It's called Who Moved My Cheese?
That's a good one.
And what it does, well, I don't want to say everything, but it teaches you how to look for little signs that are showing you you're not moving in the right direction, or everybody's moving in a different direction and you're still here. And it is a quick read, but I tell you, I read it once a year to just give me a memory jog for me to sit down and think about what's going on. Yes, for life, but also for business. And it will help you navigate and look at certain things around you.
Such a good book. I don't know, picking just one. Oh man. I'm going to rattle 3 titles and maybe see which one pops as my favorite one. So there's Brene Brown, Daring Greatly, which is really about, authenticity and having those tough conversations and being vulnerable. Similar to that, or on a similar tangent, is Radical Candor. I can't remember the author's name, but Radical Candor is essentially about the same thing, as really having the courage to speak your needs and your truth. And that's different than brutal honesty. Radical candor isn't brutal, but it is, direct. And then, well, I'll for some reason, those 2, I think Radical Candor and, authenticity really, and being fully yourself and really knowing yourself and then expressing yourself authentically. I think, that really is the stuff of authentic relationships and networking and building that support community and so forth. So I think anything that we can do to enrich our self-understanding and our effectiveness at communication, I think is are 2 good things.
All right. I use that as a opportunity to share a book and also a little bit more of the context and the history of the library here. Books have been one of the most impactful things for me in my journey, not just in the knowledge that I get from reading those books, but also the friendships that I've made from leaving books out on the table. And I'm going to share this book, and there's a great story behind it. So this is Do Over by John Acuff, and I actually got to help John promote this book. And he wrote this book after he left Dave Ramsey.
Oh wow!
And so his book when he was with Dave Ramsey was called Start. This book is called Do Over, and the book after this is called Finish. And it's a beautiful trilogy of his journey. But when I read this book, I got one of the advanced copies because he was a big inspiration for me. When I saw him speak, I said I wanted to be friends with him. We became friends. He was a big inspiration for me to do the TED Talk that I did about veteran transition. And shortly after that, he wrote this book. And when he wrote this book, when I read it first, and it's funny because Seth Godin, if anybody's a Seth Godin fan, he wrote, "This is the best career book ever written." That was his endorsement.
Wow.
So when I read it, I called John and I said, "Dude," because we're on dude bro level, dude bro terms. I was like, "Bro," I was like, "This book is going to change veterans' lives." And I remember he said, "I didn't write it for veterans." And I said, "I know. That's the best part." And he goes, "Well, why don't you write a blog about it?" So he let me write a blog about this book on his blog, which was over 1 million people at the time. And it was the first blog I'd ever written. But it was 5 reasons why this is the most important book for veterans to read. This is what was interesting about that day. Talk about relationships. The day that he did the promotion for this book, I had posted a picture of it. And I said, somebody please tag a veteran. And I had dinner 3 weeks before with John Acuff at somebody's house down in Texas. And it was this guy, and I'm drawing a complete blank on his name right now. I'll probably remember it. But he tagged this guy named Mike Nash, who I'd never met before. So I got a copy and I had it signed. And I wrote a letter in it and I said, hey, Mike, I think this book will be really impactful in your transition. I hope it helps. And I gave my contact information and I put it in a letter and I sent it to this guy that I'd never known. I didn't know that that book would actually be the first book on a bookshelf, what would turn into the Veteran Entrepreneur Library for a program called Impact a Hero down in Houston, Texas. And what's funny, I think that was 2015, 2016, almost a year later, I get a phone call from Mike Nash, who I'd never met. Hey, Dave, this is Mike Nash. I don't know if you remember me, but you sent me a book like a year ago. Bro, because we're on bro level. He's like, bro, I was still in the military when I got that. This has been really cool. I don't know if you know this, but I'm the director. I'm the executive director for this program called Impact a Hero. I'd like to invite you and another veteran to please come out and spend this week with us. Now, this week is something I never would have expected because I've never been to Houston before, but it's called the Heroes Weekend. And we got there and it was in Sugar Land, Texas, and the mayor greeted us. And they basically said, welcome to your hotel. Everything that you put on the hotel's bill this weekend is at no expense to you. It's all covered by the city of Sugar Land. Then it was, yeah, right. Yeah. I bought 2 cars. Right. So then we also, so that night was a big celebration. The next day was a 5K and it was with like people that had lost legs, lost arms. There's people in wheelchairs. It was just a fascinating thing and it was like in the city of Katy, Texas. And there was like probably 8,000 people that were supporting this event. And I'm just bawling the whole time. Like, how did sending this book to a random stranger? By the way, it's a theme in the book. He's like, it's called a boomerang. You never know if it's going to come back, but sometimes it does. And ultimately that led to the next day. There's a steakhouse, and like Texas is known for steakhouses. This is like the steakhouse. It's called Taste of Texas. Well, they bought it out for the whole like afternoon, and it was just like 70 of us that got to go to this dinner. Then it was a Houston Astros game, which I'd never been to a baseball game like that before. And then the next day, I remember it still gets me choked up. We're on the 50-yard line of the Houston Texans Stadium with the big American flag behind it. And my friend Mike, who is a brother now, gives one of the most impactful talks about veteran transition at this 50-yard line, huge dinner. The seeds that were planted in that friendship turned into us reading books together. And then that's what started the Veteran Entrepreneur Library. And now there's a whole program where there's 10 books that every veteran can start to read to be part of that program. And it actually took off in a way that led to retreats and all that stuff. More importantly than all those things, and all those things have brought great value to my life, I was going to be a groomsman in Mike's wedding. Like, that's the power of our community as veterans, but that's how powerful books can be. So the idea of the Veteran Entrepreneur Library and why we're bringing that to life here at Nevada Partners is because this is a place that is making a huge dent in our community. And I've been saying it for a while, like, the world needs to know what's happening here at Nevada Partners. And I believe that the Veteran Entrepreneur Library is a very simple example of what that is. So the idea and the encouragement and the action item for everybody who's watching this, and I'll be talking about this throughout the week and all the events that go on for for Freedom Week, is it's for people to bring a book that's been impactful in their journey of entrepreneurship, so we can put it on the shelf. And so it may inspire that next generation of not just veteran entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs that step foot through these doors. So that's the encouragement. That's the call to action to everybody. I want to thank everybody for being on the panel. If you have any closing thoughts, I'd like to start with Monifa as we make our way back.
Yes, thank you. That is such a wonderful story. Oh gosh.
Mm.
Um, yeah, my closing thought would just to say thank you to all the veterans, all the people that are serving or have served, and all the people that support us and walk with us. But to the people that are inspired to start a business, we're here. Just reach out to us. There are definitely programs, there are words of advice, but trust you already have people to talk to and people to go to and ask questions, so you don't have to take that journey by yourself.
Don't overthink everything to death. Get out there, take actions, make mistakes, replan, readjust. There's time for planning, don't get me wrong, but you will learn more by doing and having successes and making mistakes and folding that experience back in than trying to plan everything out. We've all seen this with entrepreneurs. They try to plan everything out before they ever take an action. They never get their business off the ground.
That's a great one. Instead of ready, aim, fire, ready, fire, aim, for sure. And it's like entrepreneurship is messy. There's no direct route. It's, very circuitous, and I think showing up, just being available and saying yes to opportunities to meet people, to connect, things like that. You never know, where that's going to lead. But that being said, being firmly rooted in what you're going for, what you stand for, because opportunities can be distractions also. So there's the planning aspect and the execution aspect, but there's also so much to be said for just being willing to be in the journey. Entrepreneurship is not a destination, it's absolutely a journey. And I think having your own business is like the best personal development course you can ever take in your life. It brings up everything. It brings up every insecurity, everything that you never knew was deep down in there that you had to confront. So I think from that standpoint, it's like the best therapy and the best teacher, because the first sale is to yourself in terms of whatever you're doing. And so if you're not convicted personally and committed personally to what you're doing, that really is the first step in entrepreneurship, is being rooted and convicted that what you're doing is the right path, and then just go for it. And that persistence and that grit is what's going to get you there.
Thank you all so much for taking the opportunity to share all of your stories, all of your wisdom. My final piece of advice and my call to action is where I started a lot of today from. And I did something this morning that I used to do when I used to speak at any event. I used to watch the very first TED Talk that I ever saw before I ever do any speaking event. That's what I used to watch. And I still do. I chose to do something a little bit differently. And it wasn't to serve my ego. It was to remind me where I am and how I got to be in this place to serve other people the way that I am. And I watched my TED Talk, and it helped me understand that when I wrote that 10 years ago, I wrote it, I actually rewrote it the day of the actual event, but it was such a primitive conversation then. And now, as so many opportunities have opened because of that talk, it's helped me understand a new sort of understanding and platform for where I want to share this piece of advice. And it goes from not every veteran is broken. Not every veteran is suicidal. Not every veteran is homeless, and not every veteran needs a job. There's a challenging narrative that has continued to leave so many veterans left behind, but so many other veterans to move forward. And I believe that it's that narrative and the words that we use that can take us from where we are today to where we go tomorrow. And the ask is very simple, is that whenever you hear veterans speak about or talk about their transition, the word transition is what paralyzes so many of us. So I want to challenge everyone to think this is not a transition. It's an expansion. It's an expansion of everything that we've learned, all the places that we've been, and how we're going into that next level. And once we're able to leverage that word from transition to expansion, then we can start to separate two very distinct resources, and that's those that are of post-traumatic stress and those of post-traumatic growth. If you look at this whole space as a battlefield, we have people that cannot fight right now, and we have people that can. And if we put all of the resources in one tent, then you have 15 different lines that are trying to come through that one tent. Well, the people that can't fight, this is not bad, but they don't need bullets. They need food. They need things for mental health. Where people that can fight don't need bandages. They need more bullets. They need permission to go do the things that they can do. And if we continue to fight in our own lane, then we can start to support and build resources for the other lanes. So my challenge to everyone here is that if you hear somebody use the term transition, correct them. Say, what if you're not in transition? What if you're in expansion? And that little change could be what helps them break out of that mentality where they may have trapped themselves. And it's nobody's fault. It's the words that we've used. But I believe if we're going to change the story, we have to change the narrative. The only way to change the narrative is to change the words that we use. And when we change the words, that's where we start to change the behaviors and the results. Thank you guys so much. You guys want to have a seat? All right. As we prepare to close out, I'm going to invite two very special humans up to the couch here, because this is all part of Freedom Week. And Freedom Week is actually a precursor. As we celebrate some of the other events this week, we're going to be talking about a proclamation that will actually declare Global Entrepreneurship Week for the state of Nevada. So I'd love to invite two of my favorite humans on the planet, Megan Buckley and Elias Benjaloon, up to the couch here. We're just going to talk a little bit about the events of Freedom Week, but also the power of Global Entrepreneurship Week and events in general, because guess what? You guys are all here at an event. So for everybody else, if you're excited about Freedom Week, I do want to let you guys know there's a couple of events that are going to be happening. So this is the kickoff. Monday, we actually have added a new event, and that event is about it's a CPR certification hosted by a veteran entrepreneur. I'll have all this information readily available. It's all part of the Freedom Week lineup of events. On Tuesday, we have two incredible events happening over at the Leatherneck Club. One is going to be office hours, and it's really open to veteran entrepreneurs, but it could be open to anybody. The Leatherneck Club is a bar and grill that's owned and operated by a veteran, so you're supporting a local veteran-owned business. Office hours is just the opportunity to come for community. If you have business questions, myself, Frank Manto, and Edgar Rodriguez all run different events and organizations that support local veteran entrepreneurship, and we're going to be able to answer any questions. And then that evening, Frank is going to be hosting a big event called Warrior Rising, and that's a new program that's going to be coming to Las Vegas, and you'll have information about what that program is. Thursday, we actually have here is going to be the kickoff of the Veteran Entrepreneur Library. That's where we're going to be taking all those donations for different from the events leading up to that, and we're going to celebrate the kickoff of naming the library, and we're going to be talking about some of the people that are nominated to be part of the documentary. Right, that evening we're going to be hosting VetCap, and that's my first official event with Vets in Tech. It's going to be at the DraftKings headquarters. And we're going to have a panel discussion with people from JP Morgan Chase, people from venture capital firms, people from angel investing, and even somebody talking about bootstrapping, grant funding, and all that stuff to really help not just veteran-owned businesses, but all businesses understand different ways that they might be able to get some funding. On Saturday, we're adding an event to that lineup, and the Veteran Social Club is going to be hosting a big event on the rooftop of Ole Red, the big 4-story Blake Shelton bar right there on the strip. It'll be karaoke from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And who knows, there might even be like confetti cannons and all kinds of crazy stuff there. So that'll be a great event that you won't want to miss. All of this, I have to say, has all been put together in less than 60 days. Because I saw the opportunity where one event was happening, another event was happening in the same week, and now it's turned into 8 events across the calendar week. So thank you so much for being involved in the very first one. You guys are part of history because the goal is that we make this an official thing the week after 4th of July every year so we can kick off and let the world know that in just a few months, Global Entrepreneurship Week is coming up. So here I have 2 of the community organizers, Elias and Megan. Elias is the community organizer for North Las Vegas, Megan for Las Vegas. And I'm really excited to have them here because they have been stepping up in so many ways and helping this come together. So please tell me what you're excited about and what you see for Global Entrepreneurship Week.
Oh, well, there's a lot to be excited about for sure, especially in Southern Nevada, especially right here at Nevada Partners, our home, for entrepreneurs in North Las Vegas. We have the library that's opening up this Thursday. I'm really excited about that because really what our goal of this, incubator is to really create a safe space on the West Side where community members and entrepreneurs can come together and you can support one another. One of the things that I put together in some of the proposals, or a lot of this work comes with like proposals and research, and I'm so grateful for like the UNLV professors and administrators that I get to work with, and the politicians, to make sure that what we're planning here has some sustainability. And so I put together what's called a theory of change. And a theory of change model just talks about how can we actually see the change that we're trying to make happen. And if you look at this zip code that we're in right now, it's one of the lowest income zip codes in Nevada, which is really a challenge. It's unfortunate. And so how can we change that? And what can we see to change that? And one of the things that, would tell me for sure that we've helped change that is visibly successful entrepreneurs coming out of this community. And so I'm talking about entrepreneurs that are building 6, 7, 8-figure businesses that are pouring back into this community, hiring people from this community. And so that's something I'm incredibly excited about. I don't think we're close, but I don't think we're as far as we were 2 years ago. I think we have a real shot at seeing many successful entrepreneurs come out of this space and be able to pour into ourselves and into the community, and for all of us to grow so that the next time we're here 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're not saying this is the lowest income zip code in Nevada. In fact, we've leapfrogged this zip code and we've created a model for neighborhoods all around the country to follow. That's really the number one thing that excites me every morning to come down to Nevada Partners, is thinking about visibly successful entrepreneurs coming out of this room right here.
Thank you. Yeah. So for me, I do a lot of work with the female entrepreneurs and female founders. So I'm also one of the ambassadors for Female Founders Collective, the 10th House membership. And it's a community that is mostly bi-coastal. So the founders are in the LA area and also New York, but we're kind of scattered throughout both the domestic and international. And so a lot of what I do, especially through our efforts with Global Entrepreneurship Week, is what are different communities, what are different organizations that are outside that we can pull in and really, again, take their frameworks, take that network and take that community and then bring it here and build it up here. And so that's what I'm doing more of with the female founders and the female entrepreneurs. There's also discussion around doing a panel with GoEd. And so that's still in conversation to get that on the calendar. But then also, again, flowing it back to what we're doing with Global Entrepreneurship Week. And really that being, we like to say that that's kind of just that springboard of what's possible. And so it's not really a start line. It's not really a finish line. It's just a springboard of where we're going to kind of amplify going into the next round.
So I'll answer my own question too. I'm excited.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I got involved with Global Entrepreneurship Week back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, almost a decade ago. And when I first went to the very first one, again, at the time, everyone said, oh, this is actually born out of Kansas City. Well, I was growing the wedding DJ business up in Kansas City at that time. And I went to Global Entrepreneurship Week there, 90 plus events. This was 10 years ago. 90 events were happening in the same city in the same week. Now, you can't make it to all of them, but I certainly tried. And it was amazing to see that community working together. A lot of that stuff really did carry on down to Tulsa. And here's the funny thing about relationships. I call it stacking chairs. If anyone's ever served in a nonprofit organization, you never know what you might be doing. You might be checking people in at the door. You might be passing out water, which if I can get another water, that would be great. If you could put a little bit of that Mio stuff in it, that would be even better. Thank you. But either one, it doesn't matter, just as long as it's got some crack in it. Thank you. Yeah. So what's interesting is you build relationships when I call it stacking chairs with people. At the end of the event, you might be putting chairs up, you might be cleaning. And when I got involved with Global Entrepreneurship Week, I saw it as an opportunity to bring something here to Las Vegas back in 2021. I really thought after pandemic, it was an opportunity to try to bring the community together. And the community told me very specifically, we don't need it. We don't want it. We just want to get back to normal. And so in 2021, nothing happened except for I did speak at UNLV about Global Entrepreneurship Week. And the lady kind of laughed at me and thought I wasn't going to be able to do anything. And that's fine. 2022 is a different story. We got some people together. We got a handful of people excited about it. We did about 25 events. And then last year, big challenge. It happened to fall the same week as F1. And F1 was pretty challenging here in Las Vegas because nobody knew exactly what it was going to do. Nobody knew the impact that it was going to have. Nobody knew exactly how it was going to block traffic. So it was a little bit more challenging. But the fun part was most people thought that this was my idea. And they were like, you should probably change the little date for your thing. And I was like, this isn't my thing. It's happening in 500 other cities. Well, to make it worse, as we were getting closer to the week, the only contact that I had and knew for all of Global Entrepreneurship Week was a girl named Helen. I'm not throwing her under the bus, but she left. She took a better job. And then I was afraid, oh my gosh, who's my contact going to be? It happened to be Cecilia, who we used to stack chairs together at a program in Tulsa. She's now the global entrepreneurship community organizer for all communities around the world. And she's a very powerful asset that we have. And not everyone has that same level of access. So she's been incredible. In fact, after this incredible week of Freedom Week, I'm actually flying to Puerto Rico, and I'll be representing the state of Nevada at Global Entrepreneurship Congress to talk about what we're doing here at Freedom Week and to talk about how we've overcome the challenges in Las Vegas over the last 2 years. Because guess what week it is this year? It's the same week as F1. And I'm excited about it. Next question. What do you think has been the biggest challenge of communicating what Global Entrepreneurship Week is, and how do you see that we can overcome that challenge this year? You can go with Elias first.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you have an
for
answer to
sure.
that?
I
Because
was like,
that's a really
hitting
good
us with some
question.
hard questions, interesting
Yeah.
questions for sure. I think when it comes to community development, there's always going to be a certain level of competition versus collaboration, whether it's, us as business owners, us as individuals, or organizations within an ecosystem. And it's natural that there's competition in business and in organizations because we're all competing for attention, we're competing for money. But I think that is the biggest challenge, because the purpose of Global Entrepreneurship Network is not me versus them or this organization versus that organization, but it's literally about the entire world coming together to support entrepreneurs so that we can create commerce, and through commerce we can help facilitate more global peace. I mean, I think that's the biggest reason that I got drawn to Global Entrepreneurship Network, is because we are promoting entrepreneurship around the world, and when we do business with each other around the world, we're more likely to be peaceful with one another. And so for us, one of my personal values is we're better together. And I truly believe that we're better together. And I think that with Global Entrepreneurship Network, it's not a Dave idea. It's not a me or Megan idea. It's not Cecilia. It's so much bigger than all of us. It really can be all of us combined together to support one another. But I think because there are still inklings of competition, which is natural in any ecosystem, that is the challenge that we have to overcome for the sake of inclusivity.
Yeah, that's yes to all of that. I would say too, when you have anything that's very broad, and again, so even just take with the word entrepreneur or entrepreneurship, it's like, well, what does that mean? And so it's breaking down even just from like a language or a linguistic standpoint of well, what does that mean? What is that for you? And so it does help that each year we have a theme. Last year it was Entrepreneurs Thrive Here. We're going, I think we have a meeting later this month to identify what the theme is this year. So that does help guide the conversation. But it still is that aspect of, okay, but what is this? What's the purpose of it? What's in it for me? And so that's, I know, has been some of our challenges of really kind of relaying that message to individuals, to organizations of, yeah, what is in it for you from like a university or a higher education standpoint, from a chamber or a government office standpoint, for the individual, small business owner, entrepreneur. It's looking at, yeah, what is in it for me here? And the biggest thing is proximity. There's power in proximity. I mean, just like all of us coming together here, one, you may have never met each other. We would have never met each other had we not been in proximity, because it's a lot harder to get that connection with somebody, to get that conversation going when you're virtual, or when it's through a phone call, or it's through an email, or whatever that may be, when you're a little bit further in distance. But when you're in proximity, that's power. And so that's where not only are you going to have the opportunities to meet face to face with somebody that you might not otherwise, where, you're not going to get to the CEO, you're not going to get to whoever is that controller of whatever, you're trying to get to. You got those gatekeepers, right? But that's going to give you those opportunities. And so that's where, for us all being amazing salespeople, we're looking at, well, what is your challenge? What do you need? What are you looking for? Great. You're going to find it at Global Entrepreneurship Week. And just tying it back. That's it.
I love that. Thank you. As we begin to wrap,
I was going to spit a question over your
go
way,
for it.
Dave.
Yeah, we got another
Oh,
Just mainly, how can folks get involved?
Yeah.
And what's in it for them?
yeah. How can folks get involved? What's involved with it for them? So one of the easiest ways to get involved is to go to www.gewvegas.com. That's where you can start. Now, we're a little rogue on this because there is a big global web page. It's a little clunky and it's hard to navigate because they're hosting all of the events around the world. So because we're fairly new, we're less than 5 years into this community. As far as representing Global Entrepreneurship Week, we created a smaller local page that has the resources, and there you're going to learn how you can get involved as a volunteer. You're going to learn how you can host an event. You're going to learn what events are going on and all the resources that we actually provide. I remember I was introduced to somebody here in North Las Vegas about a year ago to talk about Global Entrepreneurship Week and get them involved. And she immediately came ready to fight me, because she was like, you can't just come into my community and try and get people to host all these really expensive events. And I was like, whoa. We were definitely not teed up properly. But what myself and Elias and Megan do, as again, just a reminder, Elias, North Las Vegas, Megan, Las Vegas, we're still looking for that right community organizer in Henderson, and then one also in Reno as well. What our job to do is to find all the organizations and the venues that host events, whether they charge for them or not. Our job, and we've been very successful at getting a lot of venues to open their doors during that week and host events at zero cost to the entrepreneur. So some people may be hosting their first event ever, right? But we're also going to give them, not just are they going to be listed on our local website for their events, they're going to be listed on the global site as well. You officially become a partner. And when I say partner, this is zero cost involved. You become a partner with Global Entrepreneurship Network. That says, I hosted an event during GEW. right? Doesn't mean that you get like t-shirts or any of that stuff, but it does mean that you're now part of a global community that you can leverage some different ways, and we'll share that with you. But we try to remove those barriers for you to get involved. Some people last year hosted their first event ever, right? It could be a panel discussion, it could be a networking event, it could be a Q&A thing, right? It could be a workshop. Any of these things are going to help. But where we've also added value, we have a committee, a handful of people that aren't here today. Ben Leifsky, who did the website. We have Nadia and Lauren, who are doing all the PR. We have some different people helping out with social media. Because you're involved in our group now, we want to promote any other events that you have between now and then. So the best way to paint that picture is Jason, if he's hosting an event during Global Entrepreneurship Week, we can get on the calendar now, which kind of starts a fight with all the other cities, because then they're like,
we should do that.
Why does Vegas already have events up? Like, they're just now starting to have this conversation, and we've been having it since January. So like, we're already putting that up there. But then because Jason's now part of our local network, then any events that he has between now and then, we want to promote them. It's going to give us content and say, hey, did you guys know that Jason has another thing coming up this weekend? He's speaking at Tech Alley. It'll be really cool, because then he's also going to be at Global Entrepreneurship Week, and it starts to build a platform for him. And that's how we make our community stronger. So that's the easiest way for people to get involved.
Awesome.
Cool. November 18th through the 24th, and that is www.gewvegas.com.
It's the week before Thanksgiving.
Yep, week before Thanksgiving.
And then gewvegas.com.
Yep. Final questions, final thoughts. Well, maybe not final question. Next to final question. I sincerely have so much love and respect for both of you guys for all that you've done. And I love that you passed the mic to Megan first, because I want to ask her this question first. Megan, born and raised here in Las Vegas, why did you choose to be part of this movement?
That is such a good question. And I love this question too. Because, we have a lot of these conversations around what is the perception around Vegas, but then what is the reality? And so it really is allowing people to see what Vegas is capable of, what is possible here, and this community. We are a big, small town, and that's still growing. It's expanding even bigger. And, I've watched it grow, and I'll be celebrating 40 years coming up soon. And so it's again, there's just so much, but it's also, I think if COVID taught us anything, it's that we can't put all our eggs into one basket, that we need to diversify. We need to show, again, all of those edges, all of those facets of what's here. And it's through the people that are here. And so it's getting outside of the Strip, it's getting outside of gaming, it's getting outside of hospitality and seeing, okay, but what else? Who else? And so that's what I love about this. And again, growing up, being around entrepreneurship, it's business ownership my entire life, there's just so much that's possible. And I think even more special, and the thing that I love so much about here in this community too, is not everybody has the environment that I was grown up in. And I grew up with, my dad was an entrepreneur. So that was always a possibility. That was always the direction I was pushed in. And there are so many people and so many communities that they have no idea that they don't have to go and work a job. They don't have to go and do this one thing. There's not just one path. There are so many paths. And I very passionately talked about this year for one of our very first community organizer calls, when we're just talking about what is the idea about the theme. And I totally went off on a tangent and said, I want to really go about taking that idea of how do entrepreneurs thrive here, but how do entrepreneurs thrive? And how do we get into the communities that they have no conception of what's possible about, hey, did you know that you could start your own business? And more so, not just stopping at that higher education, because that's where a lot of the conversation is, oh, how do we get into the colleges? How do we get into universities? How do we get into the schools? How do we get into the elementary schools? How do we get into the middle schools? How do we get these kids at these younger ages where their creative juices are overflowing? And how do we start to kind of gather that together and said, hey, how do you start a business? I remember here in 5th grade, I don't know if that's still a thing now where you like kind of start your own business in 5th grade and we have shops. I don't know if that's still a thing. But again, even then I'm like, oh, cool. I can like make candy money. Awesome. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no like purpose that was really put behind it. But now it's me having those conversations with my kids. But again, stepping into other communities, stepping into in front of other kids and saying, hey, did you know that you could do this thing? You can be your own boss. Like you can be in charge. And again, they don't know that until they know. And so that's what makes me super passionate about this. And especially in a community that is very diverse, and being able to kind of go in and bring our people into it and say, hey, you guys, did you know that this is the thing that you could do? Well, now you know, and so go do something with it. Yeah, that's it.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah. I get a little passionate with that one.
I did it on purpose. Sucker. I got you. Elias, on that same note, from the international perspective of entrepreneurship, and you please go off on this, because when I watch you and everything that you've done since I met you at WeWork like 5 years ago, you've always said yes to so many things. Maybe this is a little bit biased, but I felt like you said yes to this differently, because you actually knocked on my door after I'd asked you like, yo, help me. You're like, bro, I'm so busy. And then one day you like, hey man, how can I help? So why Global Entrepreneurship Week for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first off, about saying yes to everything. Definitely watched that Jim Carrey movie as a kid, and something stuck very deeply there. But that wasn't always a good thing. And I'll give you an example where it wasn't a good thing, if I could, real quickly. I remember, just a quick flashback, when I went to college and went to UNLV. I took like 18 credits the first semester, which is a lot of credits in a semester. And then I crushed it. And then I went to my advisors and I was like, I could do 21 credits. Let me do 21 credits. And they let me do that. I had to get a bunch of petitions signed. And then I almost failed a class, but I didn't. Man, I probably was better off failing a class, because I ended up getting the petition signed to do 23 credits the next semester. Oh, no. Yeah, that semester I definitely failed a math class and I started burning out. But that's always been a thing where I've always wanted to figure out where my wall is and just go hit that. And it's almost like you won't know if you flew too close to the sun without flying. And too often I take the dive to go flying. And so I've always been saying yes to a lot of things. And then that time when I said no was because I was in a moment of overwhelm and I had to recalculate. And the lesson that I learned in those recalculations was to be more synergistic, right? Say yes to the things where there's synergy, so that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 11, right? The same amount of input results in a greater output. And so one of the big reasons why I joined Global Entrepreneurship Network, and one of the big reasons why I really recommend everybody here to find a way to get in where you fit in and be a part of the platform, is because you get access to this international platform. And one of the strategic reasons why I really wanted to represent North Las Vegas and Global Entrepreneurship Network is to figure out how can we bring resources from outside of this community into this community. I'll tell you one more random story. When I moved to Malta, which is this small island south of Italy in Europe, and I needed to like rebuild my business from scratch over there, I didn't know anybody, and that was like a huge disadvantage compared to being in Vegas, where I just pick up the phone. If I really needed a job, I have a couple people I could call to go work. I didn't have those relationships in Malta. And I tried all of the things. I was knocking on doors. I was making cold calls. I was going to business meetings. And it was very tough to initially penetrate that market. What really changed the trajectory of my life, and I seriously mean change, because it came to a point where it's December, 2 weeks away from Christmas. Rent was due. Didn't have any Christmas money. I had lots of family over there in this new country that I didn't know anybody else in. And I was like really panicked, for real. But the one advantage that actually helped me get out of that hole, and this is something that I would do at any given time if I needed to build a business from scratch, or if I needed to generate more revenue, if I needed to bring opportunities into the network. And this is what I recommend to each of y'all as well, is I started podcasting. I started interviewing people. So I was in this small island in the middle of the ocean where I didn't have that many people to be connected to. But I was able to, through podcasting, reconnect with people in America. I was able to interview people in Africa, in Asia, all across Europe. And that resulted in opportunities for me where I was able to close deals and suddenly start working with agencies around the world. And so big yes for Global Entrepreneurship Network is because it's a real resource that can bring more resources into this community. And a call to action for folks in here. You know, when I was doing those podcasts, I was literally doing them in like a basement. I was crunched over because it was a small little like roof. And it was the only place that was quiet where I could record the podcast. But I was able to do that, and I was able to build a business off of that. We've got 2 podcast booths right here that are just available for you. We've got the laptops, we've got the mics. You know, I really encourage y'all leverage this as a platform. You can say, hey, I'm a volunteer with Global Entrepreneurship Network in Vegas, and I want to interview businesses in South Korea. And the person in South Korea will be a lot more willing to accept that message because A, you have the platform of Global Entrepreneurship Network, and B, you have the platform of a podcast. And so I encourage y'all to do that. We did that last November where we interviewed like 30 people back to back. We're going to do a ton of that.
Yeah.
And I really encourage y'all to participate in that too.
But let me hit on that because I remember I have the photo and you have the best smile. You're just like grinning. It was at my apartment on a Sunday. We drafted this out by Tuesday. We were shooting Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you were doing like 12 or 16 hours a day of just back-to-back podcast interviews to drive traffic, to raise awareness, even like for everyone, even if there was only one person watching live, it's like there was still one person sitting next to you guys that I didn't even know what Global Entrepreneurship Week was. And then they got involved. So that this is there's all kinds of evil plots all around. You've got this amazing backdrop has transformed this room. It's going to continue to get better. This will be the backdrop and the stage where we do we might get like at least aim for a Guinness Book of World Records for like the world's longest
I mean, that was the goal last
podcasting.
year.
Yeah, that was the goal last year. And you know,
what's the longest? What is the record? Okay, we're beating it.
It's 8 days.
Yeah.
And the longest live stream is 30 days.
Yep. So
you know,
Let's go.
yes, we're probably gonna
we're gonna need some volunteers.
We're gonna need some volunteers.
All right, I got one in the back.
yeah.
Anybody else?
There you go. Look at that. It's contagious. I love it. You get a car. You get the midnight to 8 o'clock spot. I'm just kidding.
Hey, got to start somewhere.
Just kidding. Right, there we go.
Ooh, so
There we go.
28 it is.
So last thing, and we'll go with you guys first. Closing thoughts on Freedom Week, Global Entrepreneurship Week. What do you got?
Man, you got all these questions. Yeah, I'm interested. Freedom Week, just super, super excited. So also background, I have lots of family in military. My dad, military, brother, cousin's still active military. So very close to my heart with all of that. And I just, again, anytime that there's an opportunity to bring people together for a cause, I think it's fantastic. And us, being an Air Force city. So there's a big presence here with all of that. And so I think it's a great opportunity to kind of, again, like bounce it off and bring people together. I love it.
If my final thoughts, y'all, would be I'm gonna quote Gary Vee on this. Like, we are so lucky to be here. Like, we're 1 out of 400 billion people to, chances to be able to live the type of life that we do. And a big part of that reality is made possible by the hard work and the sacrifices that a lot of people have made in this community, specifically the veterans, the folks that during active duty have had to do so much work to, protect our country and to serve us. And I just think about those sacrifices. I think about the sacrifices of our ancestors. And I think about how lucky I am to be able to live so freely as I do. And so I take that, with the obligation to figure out ways to contribute and to add more to the communities that I get to serve. And I just want to say that I'm also so grateful for all of the people that, those of you that are in the room with us today, the people who have been coming to this space, and the people most best of all, who have been leaving, deposits of goodwill, of support, of positive energy into this room and into this community. And so let's continue building on it, y'all. I mean, like I said, there's been a lot of hard work to get us here, and we could do so much positivity with it. So let's just keep moving forward.
Love it. I will close with a bit of gratitude. Thank you guys so much for everything that you've done. It truly brings so much value to my life. And if I don't tell you that every day, I certainly try to. This is really seeing this all come together after all these years of sharing this passion is helped, and you guys have been so instrumental. That the mission is the same as it was at the beginning of today's presentation. My mission is to connect the people of our city so we can show the world who we really are. You both touched on that. There's so many powerful things that are happening in this community that the world doesn't see because they see the strip first. So that leads to my vision and my quote, if you will, and it's paraphrased, and it was inspired by one of the most impactful humans in our generation. And it's a little unlikely that I would quote Tupac Shakur, but he said that I never said I would change the world, but I will spark the mind that does. And I took that and I made it my own. And to me, I no longer feel like I have to change the world, but together we can change the way that the world looks at Las Vegas. And I think that's what we're all doing by showing up, by serving, and continuing to support all of the organizations that happen here and beyond across the Las Vegas Valley. So thank you all so much. And with that, sorry, Matt Damon, we ran out of time. It's what we call a callback.